So can we have a motion?
I make a motion that we put it at 5 years. I'll second.
And that's in the whole contract we're in. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion passed.
And does that also, then will there be an endorsement of the contract to take forward to the board?
I move that we endorse the contract with our concerns noted.
I second that motion.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passed. Okay, next we'll move to borrower record cleanup, which we need to finish today. And hopefully most concerns have been addressed now.
So there was a document in the packet that just kind of summarized what's been talked about up till now. I'm going to put James on the spot, and I did warn him I was going to do this. In an email to the group, he had expressed an opinion on this. So I'm going to ask him if he wants to make that a motion, or James, if you would rather not do that at this time and let the conversation develop a little bit.
It's just for the sake of moving forward, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we accept the borrower record cleanup as outlined in the current document, which does specify $5, 5 years.
I have just one more comment to my around the barn. She wanted to, I'm sorry, I didn't print out the documents. We had so much of this meeting, I was like, oh, darn it, I don't have that in front of me, but she would like to see before each quarterly borrower purge that spreadsheet is sent out, and so they would have like 2 weeks to put a do not purge on certain records they wish to.
Yep, and that's in the proposed. That's in the proposed process. So yes.
Michelle, just as a reminder, we have been doing that, and we would continue to do that.
We're not
Do that before I delete anything.
So there's a motion on the floor. Motion on the floor, but we need a, did we get a
Michelle second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed?
Do you have a question?
It was the one I asked you about last week. Your card will expire soon block. Will SELCO take those off automatically? Those are all going off automatically because that's a block that is for current borrowers, not 5-year expired borrowers.
Yep.
And the block goes off at the time when the card expires. Okay.
Basically, they would be counted in that second.
Okay. Yeah, that's
Manual
pretty
block.
much. Okay, good. It counts as kind of a manual block. So, yeah. I did check with Cheryl when I got back from visiting you, Sherry, and then of course once I got my answer, what was the Friday afternoon? I mean, you were just supposed to know what I learned.
Can't remember if we voted or not.
You know,
You did. I thought we did,
but I saw that Sherry had a question, so I could have usurped your job.
You can have it.
No.
No, thank you. Maybe we didn't ask if there was anybody opposed. Okay. Okay, next we move to proposed changes to automation services.
All right. We had a summary in the packet on this. I'll just go over the summary, or a document in there. I'll go over the summary real quick. In order to provide services that better reflect our realities, we're proposing to make a couple of changes to our services package. The strategic plan does call on us to take a look at our value-added services and our basic services and make adjustments. So this is part of that process. The first change is to create a new value-added service called contract cataloging, which will provide cataloging services for school media centers. The proposal is to start off with a pilot group of 25 that are already getting vendor uploads. The service sort of replaces and augments vendor uploads. That service gets bundled in to this one. And then the second service is to eliminate the value-added service for wireless internet access and just start providing support for Wi-Fi as part of the basic service package. There are a lot more details in here. I can review those if you'd like, or however you want to proceed. We are asking for a recommendation to carry out these changes.
Will you go into a little more detail on the contract cataloging?
Sure. You want to tackle that one, Cheryl?
Yeah, I can. And this is Cheryl. So basically, what we discovered with the multiple Dewey days that we've had is that on Dewey Day, when libraries get to send us materials for free for us to catalog, physical materials, they had a lot of materials that were, for the most part, copy cataloging right out of OCLC, in particular some of these schools that are getting vendor loads. And so instead of holding on to these materials until December, this contract is basically a way of getting some of those materials ahead of time, cataloging them, getting them back to the library so that they can get them out to their patrons and not have to wait until the end of December. So each of the schools that get vendor loads would be allowed to send us up to 20 physical items a month for us to physically catalog, and they still get their vendor loads. This will take some pressure off of us as far as training goes. It'll take pressure off of some of these schools that really have no interest in cataloging whatsoever. And so they don't now have to thumb through their paperwork for an hour before they sit down once a month to do their cataloging. They can just send it to us. If this goes well, and we'll evaluate it in maybe 6 months, maybe at the end of the school year, we'll talk about ways that we can expand this to other libraries possibly. Does that answer your question, Ann?
It does. So potentially then a school would not do any cataloging in-house.
Not any editing of MARC records, no. Potentially they would be sending us everything, or everything would be coming from their vendors as loads. But they still are adding their own items.
Okay. And why a limit of 20?
We did some research onto sort of the numbers that were sent to us on Dewey Day. We looked over, we kept really good statistics the last couple of years. We looked at the number of items that these schools that get vendor loads added on average per year and the number of new bib records. And we tried to come up with a number that we could make it so that they wouldn't still have backlogs, but we would not get inundated with material. And so that's how we came up with 20.
So you're hoping that it'll get spread out over the month. That's the issue.
Yes.
This is Donovan. Just to kind of expand on that, we found that last school year, from September 2013 to June 2014, the most records created by a single school was 140. That was the top.
Sorry. If you divide that by 9 months, I don't know what that is, but not a lot, not 20. So
that was part of what we were taking into account. There were 10 schools that don't do any cataloging outside their vendor loads at all, or at least they didn't last year.
Okay.
there's some pretty specific statistics on that document that kind of show you how we came up with some of the numbers. So.
No, that's all good. And then is this something that is to test a new service, and are you going to try it for a year or two, or what's your plan?
My goal is to definitely evaluate it at the end of the school year. We might look at it sooner. You know, I'm sure we will kind of monitor it as the school year goes on. But the school vendor load, for us, we need to wait until June to sort of see how it went.
Okay.
And Ann, this is Ann. I really want to take a look at it in January in relationship to if this is offered in September to the schools, what impact does it have on Dewey Day? Because we're still planning on doing Dewey Day. And are we, because Dewey Day is, while it's a great service in some respects. It's also a very disruptive service because for the 3 weeks of around Dewey Day, the cataloging staff pretty much does nothing else but catalog because we have
right. Maybe Dewey needs quarterly birthdays instead or something.
Really old.
Well, yeah, that's a really good point because Dewey Day was never really intended to be your annual cataloging task load. It was meant to be kind of a fun thing. You would get to take care of some of the oddballs that have been sitting on your shelf for a while that require a lot of special attention. But it's certainly for some libraries, not just schools, but for some libraries, is turning into that time when they get all their cataloging backlog done. Well, let's spread that out and get those materials on the shelf, and that helps everybody.
Right. Well, I think I'm correct that Austin takes pretty good advantage of the cataloging that you can do where we just pay you to do it. Am I right?
Yes, you are.
And is that pretty well, is that universally used or universally known as a service?
Well, I think it's known, but it's not used as well as it could be, I suppose.
Like, I guess, are we the only library that does that?
Not the only library, but one of the few, yes.
So, Ann, if you're worried that this will change our relationship with you, for this year, it definitely won't. I'm thinking that depending upon how the data goes, it may actually be of benefit to you because we would be looking at groups, and I'm looking at Cheryl, and she's nodding yes. As you can see from this proposal, we're no longer working on a per item basis, but we're doing it in clumps.
Mm-hmm. I'm not opposed to it. I think it's great to try something new, and I think I'm just jumping ahead to what year 2 and 3 and 4 could be, and hey, it could be great.
It could be, but I want to wait and see how it goes this year. So if it's over the 20 load, then is that back to the charge per item? Is that what you're thinking? We have not discussed that yet.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, right now that's not reflected in the proposal.
So how does this affect the revenue you bring in from Austin and the fees that do pay you for your catalog?
It's not going to, because this proposal as it's written today would be for the pilot libraries.
Just for the 25 school media centers.
That are doing vendor loads.
Or I should say 25 schools, because some of them have more than one media center.
So how many hours total are you anticipating that this project is going to actually cost? Or it won't, it'll just redistribute the hours over the course of the year?
That's what I would say. When Becky and I sat down and started looking at numbers and times and items, we really focused on what we were getting for Dewey Day and sort of planned it around the same, knowing we were going to get the same items at different times. So it's a redistribution.
Okay.
And this is Donovan. I cannot quantify this. This is one of the things we're interested in finding out. But there is a strong feeling amongst the team working on this that we will see some savings also in user support and database cleanup and training by doing this as well. We can't say what that's going to be yet. We don't have any stats to really guide us on that. And that's one of the things we're going to be really looking at in this first year.
Yep, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, a lot of it, Ann, is we'll be sort of avoiding mistakes because it won't be that person who doesn't really want to be cataloging sort of begrudgingly doing it. It'll be a cataloger who's doing this all the time and they don't have to stop and look something up. And so we won't then have to run a report to find the mistakes. We'll be fixing them before they even exist. So.
Right. I think it would be good to think now about what that would maybe mean eventually, and because of course we're paying for the cataloging that we do for our items. We take care of it here, or we pay you to do it. So one way or the other, that's our financial responsibility. So certainly you could say that the schools are getting a pretty good deal here. And we're not, the volume and the benefit of trying something new, that all makes it worthwhile. But yeah, for scalability, I think there's a lot to think about.
But just to point out, this won't be a free service for them. There is a value-added service fee associated with it. It's based on how many locations, how many buildings there are in the school district.
Well, then why on earth would they not just wait till Dewey Day?
And let me clarify, this is being rolled into the vendor loads value-added service?
Yeah.
Rather than having two separate ones for these schools. If they get vendor loads, they'll get this cataloging. They do pay for the vendor loads.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is being combined with the vendor load service.
So it's not and, this is and. It's not an either or. If they're already having us do their loads via vendor load, they will also then be buying cataloging from us.
Got it. I like it. I mean, I'm just trying to think through it. So if I were a parsimonious school library, then would I not just do my vendor load? So I have to do this if I do vendor loads. I don't get it, actually.
Yeah, that is.
What the situation we're trying to address is that a lot of these schools, they get a certain amount of their materials via vendors that also provide uploads of records. But then they also have a small number of materials that are coming from other sources where maybe vendor uploads are not available. And those are the ones that tend not to get cataloged as quickly as everyone would like, or maybe there are issues with the cataloging. I'm looking at Cheryl because she's going to correct me if I'm getting any of this wrong. So this service is intended to address school media center cataloging in a more broad way by taking care of the whole thing instead of just vendor loads, for example, and then relying on Dewey Day to clean up the rest of it.
I get that. So then are these schools going to send you anything on Dewey Day?
We don't know.
Probably not. So.
Or they might, yeah, we don't know. Maybe if they have things that are more than 20 a month.
Yeah, maybe the things that are more than 20 a month, or certainly if they have, some original items, I take them for Dewey Day. But kind of what Becky and I talked about. Go ahead, sorry.
If I put myself in the shoes of a school library, before I paid for vendor loads and I sent you my extra stuff and you did it for free. And now I'm going to pay for vendor loads and pay for up to certain amounts of stuff for cataloging for free. And I'm just going to pay for that, whether I send you something or not. So I'm going to pay more than I paid before.
But you're also going to get your materials out on the shelf immediately rather than waiting for a once-a-year Dewey Day.
Okay. So the end result is that my cost is going to go up. I'm going to get a benefit, but my cost is going to go up, and I must do it.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And I mean, remember that on Dewey Day, we limit the number of items you send us to. I think last year the limit was you could only send us 20 items. So it isn't like you're getting all your cataloging done for free on Dewey Day. I limit how many you send us simply because there's 90 of you and there's 5 catalogers. So
Right. Yeah, I was just trying to make sure I understood.
Any other questions on that one or comments?
I have a question first. I was interested in reading that only 3% of the items sent in by school required the original cataloging. So my question is, when the rules go out for sending your items in, is there something in there that says, I mean,
there hasn't been in the past, but this year we're going to do something more specific with encoding levels in OCL.
okay,
So there'll be more guidelines this year. So.
okay, because that should then take care of this problem here. Okay.
Anything else on contract cataloging? And do you want to this is a question for Charlie. Do you want to ask for a motion on that before we start talking about the Wi-Fi thing and treat them separately, or bundle them together? That would, I think it probably makes sense to do them separately.
We can do them separately. Do we have a motion to move ahead with the contract cataloging value added service? Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, seconded. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passed. Now we'll go to the Wi-Fi wireless.
Okay, the Wi-Fi one's a little simpler than contract cataloging. As I mentioned during the project report, the new routers that we are purchasing for the libraries as part of our upgrade come with Wi-Fi built in for the same cost as what we paid years ago for the existing routers. So we felt this was a great opportunity to take a service that we've been charging the libraries extra for and make it part of our basic service package. So that will just give them a basic service. There won't be any associated with setting it up or providing support for it. Now, there are going to be a handful of libraries that are doing their own wireless and will want to continue doing so because they have specific situations. Either they're required to do that by the city, or they've already invested a lot into a Wi-Fi solution. I know Plainview Public Library has a server set up that's doing a lot of statistics tracking and a lot of other interesting things, and they may not want to jump onto our Wi-Fi. So we will, of course, allow those libraries to keep doing it that way if they want. We can just turn the Wi-Fi off on the router. But for the libraries that do want to go ahead and take it, we'll start supplying that. Our goal is to have the installations done before the end of December, which is when the wireless access contracts all expire. So this will be the last year they would have to pay for that.
Are all your potential wireless users that would be getting free service small enough so that I'm assuming the service is built into it, they're small enough where the coverage would be enough, or are you?
We believe the majority are. We think there will probably be a handful of libraries that are not. And in those cases, we will deal with those on a case-by-case basis, either with equipment that we purchase, some kind of extender or access point that can be tied in, or in some cases, the library may already have an access point in place that we can repurpose as an extender. So we'll handle those on a case-by-case basis. But most of the public libraries are small enough and the equipment is centralized enough that coverage shouldn't be a problem. There will be a few.
In the case where a library is paying for a separate connection out of, say, bandwidth concerns, and then they suddenly find out that they can get free Wi-Fi through the Sonic wall, are they going to be wanting to move to the Sonic wall and then having problems with bandwidth?
We would work with each library on that kind of scenario. That is such an individual kind of thing that we'll have to work with libraries on a one-by-one basis to address that and make sure that we're not overloading any one of the connections.
Extension on that question. If they decide to go with the second Wi-Fi network to utilize more bandwidth, does the Sonic wall by nature, you limit traffic so that your records pass through?
We would have to do something in that case, and we would encourage libraries not to provide a second Wi-Fi network. And there's a lot of reasons for that that have nothing to do with bandwidth. Just having two Wi-Fi networks in the same space.
Confusion for the patrons.
Confusion for the patrons, confusion for the equipment. I mean, it can be very problematic to have two Wi-Fi networks operating in the same space. So our hope would be that whatever wireless solution they're using now is still going out, in most cases, through the internet connection that we provide. So this is really not going to change anything. There are a handful of libraries that have got a second connection, but they're only providing Wi-Fi typically on one of those. And so we would hope to simply replace the old equipment with our equipment. But those are very much the minority of cases.
And go ahead.
I was just going to ask if, well, this is a different topic, so I don't know if Ann, you're...
Mine goes back to your question about bandwidth. We are in the process, and part of the strategic plan is that we are going to be upgrading all the sites. Due to simple finances, we're staggering those upgrades. So the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 sites have already occurred. So for those sites, that will not be a problem because they've already boosted their bandwidth. If it is a location where there is an issue where moving the Wi-Fi to the bandwidth, then as Donovan said, we'll deal with that on a case-by-case basis. But our goal is to move everybody to a bandwidth-rich environment sufficient to cover all their traffic.
And as far as I know, all the public libraries are providing Wi-Fi in one way or another, either through us or on their own. So irregardless of the bandwidth and the connections that are set up, there's already Wi-Fi traffic going out through that. What this really changes is just it'll be our equipment instead of theirs. So they won't have to pay to replace that equipment when it eventually fails. They won't have to pay us if they want to get support and things like that. If we had a situation where they were doing something very individualized with Wi-Fi that did not translate well and wanted to continue doing that, we would probably recommend that they just keep doing that, and we won't turn it on our equipment. And that is an option we'll provide. John?
On the bandwidth side of it, is that something that's coming up, letting people, the libraries know in the future? This is another subject, and I don't want to open that up if we...
I have been at every meeting that I can think of, been telling people we're going to be upgrading their bandwidth over the next 3 years. It is clearly in the plan.
But to what in the goal do they know this?
Well, first of all, this isn't new. We have upgraded bandwidth at libraries every single year as long as I've been here. Right. So this is a standard operating procedure for us. Every new fiscal year, we upgrade bandwidth. Sometimes it's at all the libraries, sometimes it's at some libraries. It just has to do with what the market provides.
There's a goal specifically that you've already set up for individual libraries.
No, it's not for individual libraries. It's simply the strategic plan says that we will continue doing that just as we've done it in the past. Just like we upgrade the network equipment, we have a task to continue upgrading library bandwidth over the course of the plan. So that's an ongoing process for us.
And I was answering it in regards to James' worry about if you are a site that has had a separate wireless connection because you did not have sufficient bandwidth for staff and the public PCs, that hopefully over the course of this concentrated network upgrade that we're doing, that issue will go away.
Well, I guess, yeah, I'll just leave it there.
When you do these upgrades, would you mind doing Z to A alphabetically as opposed to A?
Well, our plan right now, we have to do the libraries that are currently getting wireless support from us as a value-added service. We need to do that this year by the end of December so that we can make sure that they don't have a break in service because that contract will expire in December. Due to budgetary constraints, we're replacing half the sonic walls this year and half the sonic walls next year, year being a fiscal year starting in July. So there are more libraries that will need sonic wall replacements this fiscal year than are getting the service. So there will be a few more. Right now we're focusing on just the libraries that are getting that service first, and then we haven't drawn up the list of who will get the replacements next. But half of them are going to get it replaced by the end of December. And we'll see if we can get you in there.
Where does Zambrosi fall in the list?
If you would like a motion for that, I would be.
I can promise we won't do it alphabetically. How about that?
Yeah, and as I look at the list of who just got upgraded, it is all over, from A to W.